Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Today channel. Hope and Carter on The Bold and the Beautiful are rocked by Zoe's shocking return. He's your son. The sleek, contemporary space of Forrester Creations, which was typically alive with the creative energy of fabric swatches, design meetings, and the low-key hum of high-stakes fashion dynasties, served as the backdrop for a cataclysmic event that would forever alter futures and destroy lives. Hope Logan felt a tentative peace descend upon her world as she reveled in the hard-won glow of her rekindled connection with Carter Walton, a bond built on mutual support, intense respect, and the shared belief in second chances following severe personal betrayals. After the difficult breakdown of his marriage to Katie and the complex fallout with Quinn, Carter, the steadfast chief operating officer, who was loyal to Hope and deeply ingrained in the Logan family circle, felt that he had at last found the stability and real connection that had eluded him for so long. Their love story felt genuine, a mature partnership based on trust and similar ideals, even though those used to LA's romantic volatility observed it with some suspicion. When the elevator doors slid open and a character many had written off, a ghost from Carter and Hope's turbulent past, Zoe Buckingham appeared. This delicate piece was destroyed in one breathtaking moment. Zoe wasn't by herself either. A newborn, maybe 4 months old, with a head of dark, downy hair and eyes that, even from a distance, carried an uncanny familiar spark, was cradled protectively in her arms and wrapped in soft, pricey linen. Disbelief, followed by fear, shattered the air as Zoe, exuding a powerful blend of defiance and extreme vulnerability, met the eyes of a stunned Carter and then a rapidly fading Hope before delivering the words that exploded like a grenade in the center of their meticulously crafted reality. He's your son, Carter. The sudden and resentful departure of Zoe from Los Angeles had occurred. Zoe had become persona non grata after the disastrous aftermath from her father, Reese Buckingham's plan to sell Hope's baby Beth, a plan in which she had tragically participated, and the following breakdown of her relationship with Carter as the truth came to light. Hope, who had suffered unspeakable agony as a result of the Buckinghams' acts, was especially frigid and mistrustful of her attempts to repair her name and win Carter's love. In Carter's opinion, Zoe's last desperate move, which involved tricking him into a fake wedding, was the ultimate betrayal and the end of their relationship. Shortly after, she disappeared, supposedly running away to Europe to lick her wounds and leave the LA scene, presumably to rebuild her life away from the reminders of her loss and disgrace. Her homecoming was shocking in and of itself. It brought back a past that everyone, Carter and Hope in particular, had fought so hard to forget. However, the baby's presence turned shock into gut-wrenching fear. Zoe's remark was followed by a deafening quiet that was thick enough to choke on. Carter, who is typically the picture of composed authority, appeared to have been hit. His face lost all color, his jaw relaxed, and his eyes, wide with complete incredulity, were locked on the baby in Zoe's arms. Then, he glanced to Zoe's adamantly determined face, looking for any sign of a cruel joke but finding none. His thoughts were racing, fumbling with timeframes and recollections of their most recent turbulent interactions before to her leaving. The calculations were terrifyingly realistic. Right over a year ago, right before her disappearance, they had their last, tense, personal encounter, which was motivated by desperation, manipulation, and Zoe's fabrications of a terminal illness to get him to return. The birth would take place 9 months into her radio silence. Carter felt the realization as if it were a physical blow, causing him to step back involuntarily and automatically clutch for the edge of a neighboring desk for support. His words sounded strange and unattainable as he stammered, "Am I, son?" "Zoe, what, how?" Denial and logic fought each other. He recalled that night's intensity, bewilderment, and manipulation. He recalled Zoe's despair. Is this a different plot? One more terrifying Buckingham trick? However, the infant. That little, helpless human being. Even in light of Zoe's prior behavior, the sheer chutzpah and the possible repercussions if she was lying felt too terrible. Nevertheless, he had never previously seen the unadulterated, primordial protectiveness in her gaze. Hope's gut was hit with a visceral punch. A surge of cold nausea and heartbreaking betrayal quickly replaced the tentative delight and sense of security she had discovered with Carter. She gazed first at the infant and then at Carter's pale face, which spoke volumes due to his lack of rapid, forceful denial. In her imagination, the timeline came together with deadly clarity. Zoe and Carter. Together. After Hope had begun to regain Carter's trust following Zoe's initial betrayal. A covert relationship, kept from her, that led to this. The ghost of Beth, the baby that had been taken from her, rushed forward and horrifyingly merged with this new baby, another kid that would forever link Carter to Zoe Buckingham, the woman who had contributed to her greatest suffering. Your son? Hope said in a tremulous voice that was tinged with shock and growing fear. Her eyes were beseeching Carter to deny it, to accuse Zoe of lying, to explain this away. The accusation hung thick in the air. Carter? Is she telling the truth? It felt as though the trust they had laboriously cultivated, brick by brittle brick, was crumbling under her feet. How could he have kept it from her? How could he have spent that time with Zoe, of all people? She was in danger of being overcome by the feeling of déjà vu, another man, another secret child, that was reminiscent of Liam and Steffi, Thomas and Douglas. When Zoe saw the destruction she had caused, she tightened her grip on the infant, whom she had subtly named Leo, which means lion, in recognition of the bravery she had required. When she spoke again, her tone was softer, less assertive, and laced with a surprising amount of emotion. She looked him square in the eyes and said, "Yes, Carter. Your son. Leo." She glanced down at Leo, her face melting with a love that felt real and transformational. "I found out after I left LA. After everything fell apart. I was angry, humiliated, and I thought this was just another punishment. But then," she said, "he changed everything. I didn't plan this. I didn't trap you. This happened because of us. Messy, terrible us." She spoke to Hope in a less combative, even contrite, but determined tone. Her eyes returned to Carter, a complex mixture of old pain and renewed purpose. "Hope, I know what you must think. I know what I did before was unforgivable. I carry that. But Leo, he's innocent. He deserves to know his father. Carter is his father." The challenge was straightforward and delivered with a certainty that left little room for doubt. "I didn't come back to ruin your life, Carter. I came back because he," she said, nodding at Leo, "deserves a father. And whether you believe it or not, whether you want it or not, you are his father. A DNA test will prove it. I'll do it right now if you demand it." Once a haven of their growing emotional and professional relationship, the office now felt like a prison. Carter was drowning. He was struck down by the abrupt, unanticipated weight of parenthood, which was inextricably linked to a past he detested. His thoughts were racing, the practicalities, the duty, the effect on Hope, the consequences for his reputation, the harsh, horrifying reality of having a son. But beneath the astonishment and terror, an instinct awoke. He truly gave Leo his full attention. The baby's brow shape, the way his cheek curves. He felt a glimmer of something intangible, possibly a family echo, or maybe it was just the strength of suggestion combined with the biological reality Zoe offered. He was a man who yearned for connection and placed a high importance on family. He couldn't bear the idea of denying his own child or leaving him behind. However, the price paid by Hope and their developed love. "Zoe," he said in a raspy, emotionally charged voice. The query was filled with surprise, rage, and a frantic request for explanation. Why now? Why come back like this? After all this time? Without warning? Zoe said, "I tried to handle it alone," in a captivating voice. "I thought I could. But it's too much. He needs more than just me. He needs his father. And, you deserve to know him, Carter. Despite everything between us, you're a good man. Leo deserves a good man in his life." She took a little step closer. The most startling aspect of all was probably how selfless she was in saying, "I'm not asking for us. I'm not asking to be part of your life with Hope. I'm asking for him." for Leo to know his dad. This was very different from the manipulative Zoe of the past. Had being a mother really altered her so much? With a silent fury burning inside of her, Hope watched this encounter. Carter's previous relationship with Zoe, which was concealed from her and resulted in a child, was a deeply painful betrayal. This kid was a permanent, irrefutable connection between Carter and the woman who had helped her lose Beth, and the worry was crippling. Because Zoe had given Carter what Hope, after her hardships, might never be able to have, a biological child, the jealousy was destructive. The reverberation of Beth's death was agonizing. Could she stand to see Carter and Zoe Buckingham raise a son? Would she be able to share him? Could she have faith that Zoe's intentions were genuinely solely focused on Leo? It felt like shifting sand at the base of her relationship with Carter. A baby, Carter? Hope eventually muttered, her voice shaking with repressed agony, tears welling but not spilling. A lot of hurt was captured in the short statement, "You and Zoe have a baby?" Carter found himself in an impossible situation. He truly and deeply loved Hope. He wanted nothing more than the life they were creating. However, he was confronted by his kid, a small, helpless being whose needs he could not disregard and whose existence he could not deny. Zoe's DNA test was merely a formality, the biological reality was obvious and supported by the expression in her eyes. He owed Leo. He owed him presence, support, and recognition. The love of his life, however, was in danger of being destroyed in order to pay off that obligation. "Hope?" he said, turning to face her with love, agony, and a sincere apology in his eyes. I had no idea. That last time with Zoe, it was a mistake, a horrible, desperate mistake in the middle of everything falling apart. I never imagined. I never thought. His words deserted him. How was he going to explain the inexplicable? How was he going to get her to agree to this? The altercation had not ended yet. It was just the initial, catastrophic shot. "He's your son," was Zoe's bombshell that tore through Carter and Hope's world, revealing raw nerves, bringing up bitter memories, and presenting an innocent child as the ultimate cause of mayhem. The consequences were expected to be severe. Carter's identity crisis, once a loving partner and stepfather figure to Douglas, he was now a biological father, permanently bound to a woman he adored and then bitterly hated. In what way would he balance these roles? How would he handle being Zoe's co-parent? Hope's broken trust, would she ever be able to go past learning about Carter's covert relationship with Zoe? As a continual reminder of that treachery and of Zoe's existence in their lives, could she accept Leo? Would this cause Liam to revert to the fears brought on by his conflicting allegiances? Zoe's change in motivations, was her newfound altruism sincere and only concerned about Leo's welfare? Or was there a more sinister purpose, an attempt to gain control of Carter's life again, or perhaps to undermine his bond with Hope? She had obviously changed as a mother, but had her ability to manipulate others been eliminated? The fallout for the Logan family, Brooke would be quite protective of Hope and would probably see Leo's presence and Zoe's homecoming as an assault on her daughter's delicate happiness. Ridge would have to choose between standing up for Hope, his daughter-in-law, and Carter, a key component of Forrester. Carter's ex-wife Katie would feel conflicted about his unexpected fatherhood. The future of Leo, an innocent infant born into a family history of deceit, treachery, and intricate adult relationships. The events surrounding his revelation and the relationship between his parents would have a lasting impact on his life. After being exiled in shame, Zoe Buckingham returned with Carter Walton's son, the game-changing element, rather than an apology. For Hope, Carter, Zoe, and the small, naive cause of mayhem, baby Leo, the words "he's your son" reverberated long after they were said, a melancholic chant that signaled the close of one chapter and the dreadful, unsure start of another. The battle lines were abruptly and savagely redrawn over paternity, forgiveness, trust, and the delicate heart of a family, not over fashion trends or corporate dominance. The road ahead was paved with suffering, tough decisions, and the indisputable, transformative presence of a child who permanently united three broken souls. On The Bold and the Beautiful, Carter's life is forever altered by Daphne's call, which shattered his tomorrow. A guy frantically attempting to portray composure in the face of a personal earthquake was mirrored in the gleaming chrome and glass of Carter Walton's office at Forrester Creations. In the center of Carter's meticulously reconstructed present with Hope Logan, baby Leo, a small, sleeping representation of a past he had attempted to bury, now existed as an unquestionable, screaming reality. The sound of Zoe Buckingham's devastating return and her devastating declaration, "He's your son," continued to reverberate through the air. After Quinn's betrayals and the turmoil of his history, the delicate calm he had discovered, the intense love and trust he had developed with Hope, felt like sand slipping through his fingers. The disclosure of his covert relationship with Zoe and its irreversible result, a child, reopened the scars from Beth's death and Liam's conflicted allegiances, leaving Hope reeling and alternating between cold denial and sobbing accusations. Ridge Forrester's worried practicality provided no comfort, Brooke Logan's protective rage was evident, and Katie's perceptive yet nuanced gaze only served to highlight the intricate mess. A whirlpool of astonishment, shame, growing paternal duty for a son he had never known existed, and the horrifying thought of losing Hope forever was engulfing Carter. He felt raw and completely lost after having yet another difficult, fruitless discussion with Zoe on the logistics of visitation. Her newfound maternal intensity was both disarming and unnerving. His phone buzzed into this choking abyss of doubt, not the typical business call, but a FaceTime request that flashed a name he hadn't seen in weeks, a name that was connected to a moving break from the LA drama, Daphne Armstrong. Momentarily confused, Carter gazed at the screen. Daphne. The gifted young designer whose reaction to that moment of shared human wreckage had apparently solidified her determination to go to Paris, and who had seen the impossible, his brief, unguarded embrace with Liam Spencer in the Il Giardino wake of Grace's horrific lie. Choosing artistic independence and sanity above the all-consuming toxicity of the Forrester-Logan Spencer orbit had made her goodbye heartbreaking. It was like a message from another universe, a simpler period before his life collapsed once more, to see her name today. Perhaps seeking a little diversion, a metaphorical breath of fresh Parisian air escaping via his electronic device, he accepted the call out of a spark of something like nostalgia, a longing for the simple professional respect they'd shared. Carter tried to sound natural, but his voice was raspy from the stress of the last 48 hours. "Daphne?" he asked. He gritted his teeth and smiled slightly. "This is a surprise. How's Paris treating you? Conquering the fashion world yet?" The sophisticated, somewhat hazy light coming in through what appeared to be a large Parisian window framed Daphne's face as it filled the screen. She appeared different, still fashionable, but with a gravity that immediately raised red flags in Carter's weary brain in place of her typical vivacious enthusiasm. He greeted her with a short, almost painful grin that did not reach her eyes, which were filled with a dark, disturbing worry that was riveted on him. "Carter," she said, her voice crisp but devoid of its typical energy, with a hint of urgency. She stopped, taking a noticeable breath, her eyes growing intense, and said, "Paris is." "Paris." Inspiring, demanding. "But Carter, I didn't call to chat about fabric swatches or croissants. I called because of you. Because of what I just saw." Carter's fake grin disappeared. A chill of fear ran down his back. His thoughts were racing. Saw? Saw what, Daphne? Although word spread quickly, Zoe's homecoming with the baby was still very recent and mostly only known to her immediate family and the Forrester inner circle. How could Paris-based Daphne know? Unless... His voice was scratchy as he asked, "Is this about Zoe?" Daphne gave a slow nod, her face gloomy. Leaning closer to the screen, she said, "Yes, Carter. It's about Zoe. And the baby." Her voice trailed off, but her fervor increased. "I saw the news alerts, the gossip rags picking up blurry photos outside Forrester. Zoe Buckingham returns with mystery baby." Carter Walton shocked. "Carter, I saw the pictures of the baby. Leo." Carter briefly closed his eyes because he didn't need the additional shame and complexity that came with being publicly visible. Unable to describe the destruction, he trailed off, "Daphne, it's a mess. A complete nightmare." Zoe showed up out of the blue, dropped this bombshell. I'm still processing it. Hope is. With a sharper voice, Daphne interrupted, Carter, listen to me, piercing his need. She took another breath, bracing herself, and said, I know it's a nightmare. But that's not why I'm calling. I'm calling because seeing that baby's picture, it triggered something. A memory. A conversation I overheard months ago, back when I was still at Forrester, before everything with Grace blew up, before I left. I didn't think much of it at the time. It was just background noise. Gossip. But seeing Leo now, knowing the timeline Zoe claims. Daphne's gaze was fixed on Carter with unnerving focus. Carter, I think there's more to this. Something wrong. Now, the fear that had been a shock coursed through Carter's body like icy water. Where he held the phone, his knuckles turned white. Wrong? Daphne, what are you talking about? Zoe offered a DNA test. It's happening. The math, it adds up. That last time with her. He felt ashamed. It happened. Daphne insisted, I know the math seems to add up, her words coming more quickly now, driven by conviction. But Carter, think. That period, when you and Zoe were involved, towards the end, before she vanished. It was chaos. Zoe was desperate, manipulative, we all knew that. She was trying everything to get you back after the Beth scandal fallout. Daphne pulled herself closer to the camera. I remember being in the design office, working late. Zoe was there, talking on her phone in the hallway, thinking she was alone. She was upset, frantic even. She was talking to someone, a doctor, I think? Or maybe a clinic? She was begging for an appointment, saying it was urgent, that she couldn't wait, that the timing was critical. She kept saying, but what if it's too late? What if it doesn't work? I need this now. Carter sensed a little tilt in the room. His thoughts raced, a doctor? What kind of doctor? What was she talking about? At the time, Zoe had manipulated him by lying about a grave disease. Was this a lie again? An alternative plan? I didn't hear specifics, Daphne said, her voice tinged with annoyance. Daphne's eyes widened slightly as she recalled, it was muffled. But Carter, the tone, it wasn't about being sick. It was about control. About fixing something. And then, a few days later, maybe a week, I bumped into her outside the building. She looked different. Paler, maybe a little unsteady? I asked if she was okay. She brushed me off, said it was just stress, but then she muttered something like, well, that option's gone now. It's done. And she looked resigned. Almost grim. I didn't understand it then. I forgot about it completely until I saw that baby's picture and the dates in the gossip articles. Cold and harsh, a frightening suspicion started to solidify in Carter's mind. His voice was hardly more than a whisper as he repeated, an option, gone? Done? Daphne, are you saying Zoe might have been pregnant before that last time we were together? That she was trying to terminate? And when that option was gone, she came to me? The inference hovered between them in the digital realm, grotesque and nearly too terrible to express. Carter was not the father if Leo was the child of Zoe's pregnancy, which occurred prior to their last meeting. Leo hadn't been created on that last, desperate night, rather, it had been a premeditated move, a terrifying fallback plan to blame him for his paternity after her original plan, whatever it was, termination, perhaps, failed. Daphne did not recoil. Her eyes met his, brimming with compassion and a steely resolve. I don't know for sure, Carter. I'm not making accusations. I'm just telling you what I saw, what I heard. The timing, her desperation on the phone, her resignation afterwards, and then her sudden disappearance. It fits a different narrative than the one she's selling now. A narrative where she needed a father for a baby conceived before she slept with you that last time. Maybe the real father was out of the picture? Or unsuitable? Or, maybe she just saw you as the perfect, stable, good man to step in. Carter thought he would get sick. It felt like the office walls were closing in. He's your son. Zoe's weeping declaration reverberated in his mind, suddenly sounding dark and cunning. Was it a bluff on her part to insist on the DNA test, assuming that the time frame would establish his paternity? Or had she carefully arranged the test so that she was certain it would reveal what she claimed? That night's memory, Zoe's intensity, her almost desperate need, now felt eerily different. Calculation, not passion. A performance intended to give a child that was already developing inside of her plausible deniability. Carter's world broke apart again as he cried out, "Daphne! My God, if this is true." "If it's true," Daphne continued gently, her tone full of sorrow, "then Zoe didn't just come back to give Leo his father. She came back to assign him a father. You. And she used that last night with you as her cover story. She trapped you, Carter. All over again. But this time, with a baby." Carter was struck with crushing force by the weight of Daphne's remarks. He had previously viewed the DNA test as a formality, but now it could potentially expose a more serious treachery. If he didn't have Leo. Although there would be a great deal of comfort, the rage at Zoe's manipulation would be unbearable. If he had Leo. Even if Daphne's revelation was a tragic coincidence at the time, the distrust had already been sown and would ruin any future relationship he would have with his kid. Hope, too. How could he explain this to Hope? That Zoe may have planned the whole thing? Hope's darkest suspicions about Zoe would be validated, and Carter would appear even more like a puppet. With deep agony in his voice, Carter muttered, "Daphne, why? Why tell me this? Why now?" "Because you were kind to me, Carter," Daphne said, her eyes now brimming with tears. "Because you didn't deserve what happened to you before with Quinn, and you sure as hell don't deserve this now. Because that baby, Leo, deserves the truth about who his father really is. And because..." She stopped, her gaze unwavering, "Watching you and Liam that day, seeing that moment of shared humanity in all the wreckage, it showed me what kind of man you are. A good man. And good men shouldn't be destroyed by lies. Get the DNA test, Carter. Demand it immediately. Don't let her control the narrative. Find out the truth. For Leo. For Hope. For yourself. Whatever it is, you need to know." Carter was standing by himself in his opulent office when the call finished, the quiet now yelling. His fragile acceptance was shattered by Daphne's comments, which echoed in his head even though her face was no longer visible on the screen. The phone call had set off a secondary bomb under his feet, possibly as a warning from a buddy who lived far away. In addition to revealing a son, Zoe's bombshell might have been hiding a terrifying falsehood. Everything changed after this phone call. The DNA test evolved into a lifeline and a sword, serving as both a crucial inquiry into possible fraud and a means of confirmation. Carter would make a fierce, urgent demand for it. Her selfless return for Leo's sake now appeared to be a possible long con, a terrifyingly calculated attempt to establish Carter as a father figure under false pretenses. Zoe's motivations were cast in a sinister light. Hope's viewpoint would drastically change. Finding out that Carter might have been the unintentional victim of a complex paternity trap would cause Zoe to become enraged, but it would also cause Leo to become extremely confused and possibly experience a different type of loss if Carter wasn't his father. Leo's identity was cast in doubt. The defenseless infant was now at the center of a possible paternity dispute. The enigma surrounding his origins suddenly became much more profound. Carter's path took a dramatic turn while he awaited the results of the DNA test. He had to choose between two very different futures. Either he was the father, but he would always be plagued by the thought that Zoe had fabricated it, destroying his relationship with Leo, or he was the victim of a cruel deception, possibly free of paternal duty but scarred by betrayal. Daphne Armstrong hadn't simply called Carter from her Parisian residence. She had tossed a lit match into his life's powder keg. In addition to interrupting his dilemma, the ringing phone had completely changed it, sending him into a horrifying new depth of uncertainty, treachery, and a desperate search for the truth that would determine not only his own destiny but also the fate of a helpless kid and the shaky remains of his love for hope. The call came to an end, but its echoes would resound indefinitely, a digital peal that signaled the end of Carter's tenuous serenity and the start of a vicious new struggle for his life, his love, and his identity. The truth about Leo was now about the darkest, most sinister form of lie, not only biology. Carter's life was forever altered by Daphne's call, which made him realize that the nightmare might be worse than he had ever thought.